Here are my top 8 books of 2014. I'm going to start with 2 books that made a really profound impact on me in 2014 and changed the way I thought and just became instant favourites. So these 2 books are definitely my top 2 of 2014. Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. I read Mrs. Dalloway a couple of years ago and I wasn't really quite sure what to make of it. I didn't know if I liked it or if I hated it. I just couldn't make up my mind. But for some reason this book haunted me. Some of the images in this book just stayed with me for such a long time and made such a profound impact on me that I needed to read this book again to understand why. So I picked it up and I loved it. The first time I read Mrs. Dalloway I thought it was quite cold, but the second time I felt that it was one of the most emotional books that I'd ever read. Mrs. Dalloway isn't just about Clarissa, it's about everybody and everything. It's about life itself. Another book that I'm completely obsessed with is Under Milkwood by Dylan Thomas. Under Milkwood is a play, it's a play for voices, and I remember when I first heard Under Milkwood I wasn't really listening to it, but then I was suddenly struck by kind of the very first lines of the play, and in particular when the narrator described darkness and night as being Bible black. This is a book that the language just hits you and it devours you, and it is just incredible. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I don't actually have much to say about this book, apart from that I loved it, and the fact that I knew how the plot would end, but yet I was still completely enthralled by this book. I think that actually shows just how good it is, and the descriptions of London at the time, and it's just really enjoyable. Jackie Kay's Trumpet is a moving story of love that really struck me when I was reading it for university. The descriptions of the sea, in fact the sea is a metaphor in this novel, and for some reason I just love books that use the sea as a metaphor. The sea in Trumpet is actually really poignant because I guess just like the identities that Jackie Kay is kind of examining, they're fluid just like the sea, and it just worked. And the grief in this book is just excruciating at times, and it's lovely. It's just really nice, just go read it, it's fine. Another book that uses the sea as a metaphor, The Awakening by Kate Chopin, or Chopin. The Awakening is a book about Edna Pontellier who is trying to break free from patriarchy, really, from her patriarchal marriage, from the gender roles that say a woman has to be a dutiful wife and a perfect mother. It's a wonderful examination of what gender roles are and whether women at the time could escape them. And the end of this novel, if you've read it, is extremely interesting. And to be able to kind of analyse that and actually think, was the ending to this novel the only way out for women like Edna? The sea as an emblem of escape and of possibility was incredible, and the use of birds throughout this novel really intrigued me as well, with the idea of the caged bird, with Edna Pontellier being caged in her patriarchal marriage, and the mother women who use their wings in a protective maternal way, or the bird that soars and is free. If you're interested in gender and feminism and women who want to break free from conventions of society, I would definitely recommend The Awakening. Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter. The hypocrisy of the Puritan community in this novel really struck me, and I love how Nathaniel Hawthorne actually portrays Hester as being almost not angelic, but as an amazing female character who is complex and is not simple. I love that she takes her letter A, which was given to her as a symbol of her adultery, of her sin, and she embellishes it and makes it into a thing of beauty. This book openly condemns and exposes hypocrisy of religion and the confining and restrictive nature of society, and is actually quite transcendental with the idea that the wilderness, just like the sea in The Awakening, is an emblem of freedom. And I really like looking at the kind of binary opposites of civilization and wilderness in this novel. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I love The Great Gatsby. Me and The Great Gatsby are just really happy together. We could just stay with each other forever. Such a good book. This is another reread for me this year, and I read it for university, which was amazing. If you haven't already read The Great Gatsby, I definitely suggest, if you like books about the failures of capitalism and corruption and death and betrayal and love, but love that's not really love, of ideals and of the American dream, The Great Gatsby is the one. And finally, Atonement by Ian Mcewan. A story about love and fiction and reality, and knowing the difference between fiction and reality. I was completely absorbed in Atonement, and now it actually feels like I read it a long time ago, so I need to reread it because it was just a really, really good book, and it was an incredibly enjoyable read. I hope 2014 was a wonderful year for all of you, and that you read some amazing books, and I hope that continues for 2015.